Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Daryl Dittmer. He's an entrepreneur and author. Welcome to the show, Daryl.
Thank you so much, AJ. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Daryl. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We will be talking about how one can overcome addiction and find the success that they want to achieve or they dream of. And before we come to this, let's understand about from you, Daryl, through your background, through your journey, how this is possible, how you have done it for yourself.
Well, I grew up in the U.S. and in the Midwest, which is known for the auto industry, really, and farming and that sort of thing. So I came from a place where we learned to work hard at an early age. We learned to we had a Christian background and a Christian upbringing, and those were things that were instilled in me. It was a strict household. My dad was a mechanic. We didn't have a lot of extra money, that sort of thing. So I was put to work at an early age, and just doing farm work as a kid, and it wasn't. I didn't do it because I wanted to do it. I did it because that's how our family was oriented, and that's what you do. You go to work. So,
Right.
in my teen years, I started to become addicted, and I started drinking and doing drugs. And I think a lot of people have the story of around 13 years old, they try alcohol or they try drugs, and I did that, and I enjoyed it, and I wanted to do more. And so from that point till the age of 18, and I was thrown into treatment at the age of 19. But between 13 and 18, it really escalated, and I became a person that I was not raised to be. I became a person who was a liar, a cheat, a thief, anything I could do to support my addiction, anything I could do to support that destructive lifestyle. And so through an intervention, I was basically put into treatment at the age of 19, and spent 30 days inpatient treatment, and that's when my life started. That's when my second journey, I suppose, started, and I've been doing that now for several decades.
Right, right. Thanks for that, Daryl. Now, what is it that people go into rehabilitation or whatever it is, whatever help they get as soon as it is possible, but they go back to the old ways? What is it that worked for you that you did not look at the early part of your life, the life before, after you came out? Because you said that was the life I started enjoying it, and that led to something else and else. So I want to understand that is how can one make that shift from that point, from that life to the life of success and happiness.
It involves number one, I think, being sick and tired of being sick and tired. I think people have to get to a point where they've had enough, and that can be different for everybody. I was 19, so I hadn't lost a wife, I hadn't lost a house, I hadn't lost I didn't lose a
Right.
car until I was sober. But there's a lot of things that I didn't have happen. I should have been in jail many times. I was never put in jail. A lot of things didn't happen, but the emotional toil and turmoil that it took, or that my addiction sort of brought me into, was something that I didn't want anymore. There was always this friction of how I was raised versus how I was becoming and what I had become. And that was something that I just didn't want to experience anymore. I wanted to have a different life. And when I was put into treatment, I got something from treatment that was really helpful for me, and that was hope. I got a hope as I met people who were in recovery and who were experiencing a different life, I got hope that I could experience a life that was better than the one that I was currently experiencing. And so there has to be a decision. There has to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. And there has to be just a little shred of willingness to do some difficult things to get into recovery. And then, once we get rid of the addiction, the substance, whatever that is, it could be food, it could be gambling, it could be drugs, alcohol, it could be a number of different things. But once we get rid of that and we start to feel like, oh, wow, life can be different, life can be a little bit better, I think that's what people need to experience to put themselves on the right track.
Right. Is hope enough at that stage when you are addicted, or is it something bigger that one has to see for themselves? Can hope take you beyond, beyond addiction? How does that happen? How do you work towards that, and consolidate all that thought process, the positive thought process?
The hope part was more like a tool, and so the hope doesn't bring us anywhere. The hope gives us, a possibility when we see other people. And it was helpful for me to see other people that seemed happy, that seemed fulfilled. And then I met people who had had some success in this life, and I thought, that's what I want. So hope brought me to the threshold, but then what actually brings us into the life is doing the work. And I was also introduced to the 12 steps in that treatment center, and that was a framework. Again, I was 19, so the 12 steps was a framework for me. It was a guide to living the life that I wanted to live. And I wasn't sure exactly what that meant, but I knew that I didn't want to go backward. So that's how it unfolded for me. And it wasn't all at one time. The success I've had in my life, I mean, it took many, many failures before there was any success. And I still fail, I try things and fail, and that's okay. I don't care anymore in terms of the failure. It just, for me at this point, it's just get back up.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's good. You mentioned means the why should failure should not be problemsome either for yourself or for anyone else. Means that's not even failure. That's learning. And so I want to understand for the audience, Daryl, is that you were 19, then you went into rehab, came out. How did you start building things up? Because you have to do it. Others can do everything else for you, but at the end of the day, it is you who have to do things on the ground. How did you start building it up? How was your life from that point in time till the present time?
Well, I tried a few things. I grew up, as I mentioned, working on farms, and then I did carpentry. I actually ended up going to college. Nobody in my family had ever gone to college, and I went to college, or never graduated from college. So I went to college, and I got my degree, which I knew wasn't really going to do anything for me except maybe open a couple of doors. I got a criminal justice degree because my brother was a police officer, my grandfather was a police officer, my other grandfather was a firefighter, and my dad was a mechanic, as I mentioned. So very blue collar upbringing. I didn't understand business. I didn't understand marketing. I like to joke that when I got out of college, I still didn't know the difference between wholesale and retail. That was, sort of where I come from. But so I was asked by a friend to get involved in a sales position, and I did. And without belaboring the point, I tried a few different things in terms of sales and in terms of taking risks. And I think, a crucial element is to take risk. We have to step out of what we feel is comfortable. We have to let go of some of those fears and some of those things that can hold us back. And and that was important for me to do. And I didn't necessarily think of it as taking risks at that point, but it was, because I was scared to death to do all of them. So I took a risk in terms of a position, a sales position at a company that's probably, 5 or 6 iterations of me in the business world, and this one stuck. And so I got very good at the craft, and I became the second largest shareholder in the company. And during that time, as I was making money, I had bought a couple of properties, and it was a slow progression, though. It was, the first house that I bought was a house from the 1700s, and it was all beat up. It had been abandoned for a couple of years, and because I had done carpentry, I fixed it up myself, and ended up selling that many years later for a nice profit. But those sorts of things, that dipping my toe into things that I was scared to do, and things that I was hesitant about, and failing all along the way, with different things that I would try. So that's what's really brought me where I am today, is continuing to dive in, continuing to do things that I don't know if I can do them or not. And that's okay today. That wasn't okay 35 years ago. But I did it anyway. Today, it's a different story. It's okay to dive in. It's okay to take a risk. It's okay to fail. It's okay to not feel like I want to do something, but I do it anyway. All those kinds of things, which is, for me, is that growth part that we achieve by doing the hard things. We understand that the hard things aren't really that hard anymore. And I think that's one of the blessings, I think, that I've gleaned over the years in terms of my growth, from a business perspective, from a personal perspective, and, just internally.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now you are making a difference by sharing your story to a lot of people, and that is where even if this episode is a part of that part of your journey. So, Daryl, I want to understand. You talk about tools and principles that one can use to achieve the life that they desire. If you can share some of these tools and principles so that people can benefit for themselves.
Sure. I believe that, there's a lot of things that we can practice, and principles, I believe, never go out of style. They don't expire. They don't have a use by date. They're always with us if we align with them to improve ourselves and improve our lives. And some of the principles I had to align myself with was because I needed to get better inside here before I could do some of the things that I needed to do to expand my outside life and expand my life in terms of business and that sort of thing. So one of the first things that I had to latch onto was gratitude. And that's something that, and for me, it was very simple. Like, hey, I'm happy I woke up this morning. I'm happy I can see. And I had to expand that as my life goes on. And every day now I do go through a little gratitude, just sort of prayer for myself, and understand how much that I am thankful for. Courage is something that I think is incredibly important. And people think, you have to ask God or some higher power or universe or whatever for courage. I believe we've already been given the courage. It's just a matter of us doing the thing, and then the courage shows up. And that's the hard part, that little scary step between not doing it and doing it. And understanding that we don't have to have the courage to do it. We have to do it, and then the courage shows up, and then we can do more. Persistence is something that's incredibly important for me. When I get knocked down, I have to get back up. The only failure, I believe, is either not trying or not getting back up. And those
Right.
are the two things that can stop us. So there's so many. Today I have faith that things work out. And I truly believe that. I think that the universe or whatever it is sort of aligns with us, and if we're putting in our effort, the universe will meet us halfway, and it can be more of a partnership than me having to do things alone. So there's a number of different things that we can develop over time, and that I've developed over time that have just become my partners in life, and those principles are a few.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said, well explained, Daryl. Now, what you mentioned faith. How should we look at the role of faith when we start losing faith in ourselves and our abilities at any point in time?
I'm my journey starting, as a kid with Christianity, and that's how I started. I don't call myself a Christian anymore, but when people say, "Do you believe in God?" I say, "Yeah, God and we're pretty tight. We have a great relationship. It doesn't come from a religious perspective, and I think that's an important thing for me. So faith comes from that, and faith comes from looking at my life and saying, everything is worked out. There's a whole lot of things in my life where I shouldn't be around anymore. And things continue to work out. And not always. That doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to like it or that I'm
Right.
necessarily going to be happy about it. But things do work out, and I think one of the things that's important for me to pay attention to is and this gives me more faith as I watch this unfold in my life, but we get lessons and we get things presented to us where we have the opportunity to learn or to not learn. And if we choose not to learn that lesson, we'll be presented that lesson again, and then we'll be presented that lesson again until we learn. And I've seen that happen 100 times in my life, if not 1,000. And who's in charge of that? Who makes up those rules? When you learn the lesson, you don't get it anymore. It doesn't show up anymore. And so that's how I develop faith, by watching what has happened in my life, and knowing that if the past is any indication, the future is extremely bright, and I think it's important for us to pay attention to those things as we go.
Absolutely, absolutely, Daryl. Uh, there is much to learn from you, and we can learn a lot about from your book. When I Stop Fighting, you talk about perseverance, you talk about persistence, and you name your book as When I Stop Fighting. What is this stopping fighting mean? I like the name of the book; it is different, but I would like to help you understand. You help us understand about the meaning of this title for the audience.
Thank you. So I had a mentor when I met him at 19 years old, and my upbringing was wrestling with problems. If it doesn't fit, get a bigger hammer, shake it off. No pain, no gain. All of those things were sort of how I was introduced to life, and that was the environment that I came from. So it was always fighting to try to get through problems, and wrestling to deal with things. And as my mentor was listening to me and watching me wrestle and fight, and this internal sort of turmoil that continued to happen with me, he said, and this has stuck with me, and obviously it's why I titled my book that way, but he said, "Daryl, when you stop fighting, the fighting stops." And that was the most important thing for me to hear at that point in my life, and also something that I keep in mind as I continue to go through life, because what is the fight? The fight for me initially was drugs and alcohol. It was my, the upbringing, some of the things that I needed to shed, some of the things I needed to let go of. You know, and come to find out that the entire fight is me fighting me. It's not necessarily me with the world. It's not necessarily me with other people. It's the fight that I have with myself. And I think back of even very simple examples. When I first got into recovery, I was put in a position where I was scared to death to face my emotions. I was scared to death to face life, and I wanted to do things correctly, and I was nervous that I wouldn't do things correctly. And and I don't know if I'm hoping I think people can relate to this. So I would try to change, and I would try to be different, and sometimes I would fail, and sometimes I would do things that I didn't necessarily want to do or that didn't fit with this new life, and then I would kick the crap out of myself for that, you know, and that's the fight. Like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way, or you know, and we fight ourselves, and I fought myself tooth and nail for many, many years, and Bud, my mentor, saying that to me so many years ago helps me to let go of that fight. And the opposite of fighting for me is allowing. It's allowing life to happen. It's allowing life to take place. You know, life is in session, and you know, difficult feelings come and go. Beautiful feelings come and go. All of these things just kind of work through our lives, and they come and they pass. And for me to just allow that to happen, as opposed to fighting everything every step of the way, that's how my book got named, and that's how I've tried to live my life for a long time.
Wonderful, wonderful, Daryl. And this is just one book. You have another one coming out in October, if I understand.
I do. Actually, the books are behind me. The orange cover is the When I Stop Fighting, and book number 2 is called When You Stop Fighting. And the first one is about my story and my journey through addiction and change and winning and losing and learning lessons. And the second one is designed to help show people what things they can look for in life in terms of, you know, hey, maybe I'm not moving in the direction I want to move in. You know, thinking about our trajectory. Where am I headed if I'm doing the same thing over the next 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, 20 years? You know, what are some of the things I can do to alter my trajectory? So book 1 and book 2, I think, complement each other, and book 2 is very much about helping other people with their journey.
Wonderful. There is much to learn from you, from your journey, from the books, from so many things that you know talked about. And I'm sure a lot of people would want to learn more about you, from your books. What is the best way for them to do so?
The best way is to go to my website. It's www.daryldittmer. It's on the screen there, DARYLDITTMER.com. And that has all the links to my current book. My next one's coming out fairly soon, October 15th. And it has links to all my social media. And if you want to sign up, which I think is pretty cool, we have a lot of people that sign up for excerpts from book 2, which I'm actually sending out now, so they can get a chapter from book 2 to kind of get a preview of that book. So that's the best place to find me, is my website.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, AJ.